As you all know, the number one reason people leave atheism is because of lack of evidence. And we're going to be going through 10 reasons why atheism just doesn't make sense. And we're going to start from number 10 and then work our way backwards. Here we go. And keep in mind, as we go through this, I'm going to be pointing out some videos and some information here on shakanow.net. You may want to open that up as we go through this video so I can point out some things to you. There's been some recent studies showing that atheists are now the least trusted minority, and I think you're going to find this pretty shocking. But I think I know why atheists are now the least trusted in society. But let's go through these 10 reasons why atheism just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let's start off with the atheist claim when they say God doesn't exist. Now, we've all had this happen to us where we've had sweet, lovable, cuddly, huggable atheist friends of ours that claim God doesn't exist. But then when you press them and you try to get them to give you arguments why God doesn't exist in their opinion, they backtrack. Have you ever noticed that? And they'll say, oh, no, I'm not claiming God doesn't exist. I'm just saying I don't believe God exists. This is what they'll do every single time. So this is what I think is a big problem why atheists are least trusted, is because they backtrack a lot. They will make websites claiming God doesn't exist. They'll create TV shows and radio shows, cable shows saying God doesn't exist. They'll promote it. They'll try to document it. They'll do everything. In fact, I've never heard so many people talk about God than atheists. In fact, I think what they're doing is good for theism because it's having the reverse effect. They're obsessed about God. To create a radio show and a TV show all about bashing God pretty much shows that God exists. But what they'll do is they'll do things like this. They'll say God doesn't exist publicly. They'll put billboards up saying God doesn't exist. But when it's time to get into the arena and to debate and to give some arguments, some proof and evidence that God doesn't exist, some proof and evidence, if you will, that atheism was accurate and correct, then they run into their little bunny holes and they'll say, no, I'm not claiming God doesn't exist. I'm just saying I don't believe in God. This is what they'll do almost every single time. Well, every single time I've had that happen to me. When you press them, they'll go from saying God doesn't exist to, oh, no, they just don't believe God exists. This is what they do. It's a tactic that they use so they don't have to give any good arguments of why they believe atheism is accurate and correct. I believe this is backfiring on them, and I think this is why atheists, I'm going to show you some studies, are now the least trusted group in society. But let's take on the atheist claim number one, that God doesn't exist. They claim that. We've all heard that. Every single person listening and watching this video has heard that. And then we're going to take on their claim that they don't believe God exists. So this is a big problem for atheists. Now, I used to be an atheist, and many of you watching this video have used to be atheist also. And we all left atheism because the lack of proof and evidence that atheism was true. There's so much evidence for Christian theism. There's just a tremendous amount of evidence. And I think this is why theism rules the world right now. You know, the majority of people in the world confess that God exists, but atheism seems to be struggling, even going backwards globally. Let's hit on this argument that they use, that they say they don't believe in God. Well, let's go through this. What's the problem with them claiming they don't believe in God? Does that show that atheism is true? It doesn't, does it? Let's say you were a Muslim and you claimed that you didn't believe that atheism was true. The atheist is saying they don't believe that Islam is true, and the Muslim is saying they don't believe that atheism is true. We all know that both of these things then can't be true, right? They can both be wrong, but they both can't be true. So the fact that the atheists say, and if you're an atheist and you're listening to this and watching this, what you need to understand is that the claim when you say you don't believe God exists, it is meaningless. It doesn't have any weight to it whatsoever. It doesn't sway a theist whatsoever. You've got to give some proof and evidence of why you believe God doesn't exist. Now, let's say someone was a Hindu and they claimed they didn't believe that atheism was true, and the atheist is saying they don't believe Hinduism is true. You see, the Hindu can use the same argument that the atheist does. So that's really all atheists have, right? That's all they ever say is they don't believe God exists, but then when we press them to give us some good arguments, some evidence, science, anything, give us anything showing some good evidence, some good arguments that God doesn't exist, we're willing to be free thinkers and we're willing to look at it. What does the atheists do? They fail again and again and again. I mean, atheists have tried for centuries, you guys, to disprove the existence of God, and they're still failing. Atheism is just a big failure in our world. They are failing, and they're failing big time. Why? Because of saying that God doesn't exist, and then when we try to get them to give us some good arguments, science, history, some archaeological proof, anything, they just fail again and again. Now, I want to give you an example of this. Go to shakanow.net. I'm going to put the link right here below the video and watch this video from the Reason Rally. Now, it's kind of cloudy and everything because God, agrees with me that, or I should say I agree with God, that atheism's all washed up. So God rained on the Reason Rally. Now, this is a group of atheists that get together and they have meetings. Now, I don't know why you would have meetings as atheists, because on your worldview, everything dies anyways in the end. So it's sort of like a pointless meeting. I don't get that. We'll talk about that later. But go here and watch this video here as a creationist is questioning an evolutionist, and the evolutionist is very, very confused. This is a very famous agnostic atheist he calls himself an agnostic atheist, I think, because he's confused with his atheism. He's not sure. So watch this here. The guy on the right here with the plastic like trash bag over him because it was raining. Watch how he's very, very confused. Go to shakanow.net and you're going to see why atheism is now declining worldwide and why atheism just doesn't make sense. So let's finish up with this first argument and then we'll go on to the next one. How atheists say they don't believe God exists. The problem with that is if an atheist approached me with that, I'm not even swayed by that. I know that they really do know God exists. I'm not swayed by that. Go with me to the first page of Romans. Let's do that, shall we? Okay, so go with me here, guys. Notice in Romans 1:18, it says right here, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their atheism, and their foolish heart was darkened. Notice, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Now, notice here it says also when you go up to Romans 1:18, it says the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest, notice, in them, inside of us. We all have this knowledge inside of us that we know God exists. And notice it also says that we are without excuse. So the fictional worldview of atheism is not going to be a good enough excuse when we stand before God. So it's just we're not going to be able to convince God that we didn't have knowledge of his existence. We clearly do have knowledge of his existence. Go to Romans 1:18. Now, let's go on to the next one. So, problem number one here for atheists is this claim that God doesn't exist, and then when you press them for some arguments, they run into their bunny holes and they say, "Oh, no, 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 I wasn't saying God doesn't exist. I was saying that they don't believe in God," but then we know that that doesn't make logical sense to say that either. Because you claim something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Now, when you go to shakanow.net, I want to show you something. There's a guy very well known on YouTube, and I debated him. And all his videos, he's claiming God doesn't exist. One after another, he'll claim it. But then when I get him into debate, and you go right here, it's titled "Atheist Loses Debate to Christian Shaka God." When you go and you listen to this one, he says that he's not claiming that God doesn't exist. And you'll see it's like a method that they use. So this is why, and we're going to talk about why atheists are the least trusted group in society. We're going to talk about that. Don't forget to listen to this one too, where I call into an atheist show. And you're not going to believe this, but you'll hear him say it right there. I asked the atheist to give me some arguments that would show that atheism is true, and he said that atheism is true because he says so. He actually says that. Oh, the arrogance and foolishness of atheism. Atheism's madness, guys. Now let's mosey up here. All right, so we finished up on that one, the claim that God doesn't exist, and then when we press them for arguments, they run into their bunny holes and say that, "Oh, no, no, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying they don't believe in God." And then we talked about how that doesn't have any weight and it doesn't sway anybody. Now let's talk about evolution and abiogenesis. This is a big problem for atheists also. Abiogenesis, as you know, you guys, is a theory that life could actually come from non-life. So you have something that's not living, and all of a sudden something comes from this non-living object, and it becomes living. So abiogenesis, look it up, it's the theory that life can actually come from non-life. Now, a lot of people don't believe that. They're like, "I can't believe that," but every atheist I've talked to believes in that. They believe that life can come from non-life. The problem, though, is if you believe that, then you have to believe also that the resurrection is true. Why would the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who had been crucified on the cross, why would it not be true if you believe that life can come from non-life? It's the same exact thing. Now, I want you to hear and see what I believe is the most epic video I've ever seen in my life. Okay, let's go to this video right here, and when you go to shakanow.net, let me show you. You go right here, shakanow.net, I'll put the link below this video, and you scroll down here, and do you know that this video, the atheists have been false flagging this video literally like over 20 times, and the Christians keep putting the video back up. But it's this video here. See it while you can. I strongly suggest you download it and save it to your computer like I've done. That way we can keep uploading it again. But a Christian caller calls up. The gentleman's name is Micah. And Micah calls up. He's absolutely brilliant when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to science, creationism, evolution, DNA, abiogenesis. The guy is just an absolutely brilliant Christian. And really nice guy. And he calls up the Atheist Experience show. He's being very, very polite. And he gets the atheist to concede that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is possible. And guys, this was on an atheist show. And the name of the video is right here, Brilliant Christian Caller Destroys Atheist Experience Show. Now, I have to compliment the Atheist Experience Show for being honest on this call and admitting that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is possible, not impossible, but possible. Now, why was the Atheist Experience Show forced to concede that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is possible and not impossible? Well, because if you're an atheist, you also, my friend, listening to this video and watching it, must concede that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is possible if you believe that abiogenesis is possible. Abiogenesis is the theory that life comes from non-life. Now, if you're a Christian and you're talking to your atheist friends, ask them if they believe in abiogenesis. And of course, if you're a Christian, you're talking to your atheist friends, they're going to say yes, they believe. They have to say they believe in abiogenesis, that life comes from non-life, because that supports their worldview. Once they say that they do believe that abiogenesis is true, you got them. They must then admit that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is also true. And especially given also that God exists, it flows nicely and it has the most explanatory scope. One of the reasons why I left the fictional worldview of atheism is it does not have enough explanatory scope like Christianity does. With Christianity, everything makes sense. We know why we have evil in the world. We know why we have good in the world. We know why there's a spiritual realm. We know why DNA is empirical proof of design. We know these things. But with atheism, there's just not enough explanatory scope. You have to kind of make things up as you go along to be an atheist, because modern science is totally against atheism. But I want you to listen to this right here. It talks about abiogenesis, and the Christian caller gets yelled at the end of the call because he literally destroys the Atheist Experience show. Go to shakanow.net. Scroll down here, all the way down here, and then once you go below the angels here, you'll start to see it. And listen to this. The Christian caller does so good he gets yelled at. Now, another problem for atheists is evolution. You know that atheists will say that they believe that everything was created from the earth, that the earth actually brought forth the animals and the plants and things like that. Well, let's see what Scripture says about that also. Now, it is interesting that our atheist friends believe in the Bible. Your atheist friends will actually believe what the Bible says, because let's go to Genesis 1. Check this out, guys. It says, and God said, I'm going to Genesis 1:9, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. Now, watch closely here. What is it your atheist friends and my atheist friends say that the earth brought forth? The fruit trees and the animals and man and all this. That's what they say, right? Well, look what it says here. Genesis 1:11. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass. Well, that's what our atheist friends believe. So our atheist friends are very theistic. The herb yielding seed and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. So you could tell your atheist friends, wow, you're very theistic in your beliefs, because that's what God did. He had the earth bring forth grass and the herb yielding seed, etc. Now, let us go through this. Sometimes your atheist friends will say that the waters brought forth creatures and birds and things like that. Well, your atheist friends are very theistic. Very theistic. Look, notice Genesis 1:20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters, notice, brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So your evolutionist friends are actually creationists. So now, what's the one word? I'm gonna highlight all this, and I'm gonna give you about 20 seconds. How do I make this? Let's make the screen larger here. What's the one word in this highlighted text that your evolution atheist friends don't like? They like everything in there but one word. What is it? That's exactly right. God. See, what your atheist evolution friends want us to believe is that the waters evidently were magical waters and they did it all by themselves. They designed the creatures all by themselves. That the earth was magic earth and that the earth did it all by itself without being guided. That's the tough sell that atheist evolutionists have. It makes more sense to the rational world. This is why the majority of the world are theists. It makes more sense to the rational world that what happened is what really happened, and God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life." Check this out. When you go to shakanow.net, I have an IQ test here. Take this IQ test. I guarantee you you're going to choose letter C. And it's going to go through different things. What item takes less faith to believe? Atheism, the neo-Darwinian theory of evolution, or creation. Most of your atheist friends are really creationists and they don't even know it. Let's go back to Genesis. So it's a very hard sale. It's really a hard sale that these atheist evolutionists have to do to the rational world. They have to sell us on the idea that, and this is where atheism's almost hilarious. It's such madness. They want us to believe that the earth by itself sprouted forth all these creatures for no purpose, by the way. Remember, atheists say that there's no purpose to life. For no purpose whatsoever. Can you see the mass of atheism, folks? It's absolute madness. Let's continue. So back to this. Let's remember, when you go here, you're going to go below the angels here. Here's the angels. And here's our shock radio station. You want to listen to us on radio. I think you'd really enjoy that. We talk about stuff like that on the radio. And go to this video here. Brilliant Christian Caller Destroys the Atheist Experience Show. The Atheist Experience Show actually conceded that the resurrection of Jesus Christ can be true if abiogenesis is also to believe true. So this is a problem for atheists. They cannot remain against the existence of God if they believe that abiogenesis is true. You have to also then believe that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is also true. This is why at the end of this call, the atheists go absolutely nuts and start yelling at this very polite, wise, I would say more intelligent person than the caller. Micah is well more intelligent, totally way more intelligent than all the atheists on the show combined. You could tell he knows more about science than they do, and he totally decimates them on the show. This is a very rare clip. The atheists do not want you to see this clip. This clip has been flagged down like well over 20 times, but we've downloaded the hard copy of it, so we keep uploading it again. So here it is. Go to shakanow.net, ladies and gentlemen. Do not be faithless, but believe. And go right here where it says Brilliant Christian Caller Destroys Atheist Experience Show. That's why they look so sad in the show. They're realizing that atheism has just gone extinct. Let's go to the next item on our list here. Okay, Christopher Hitchens was very famous for talking about how we all become one with the universe, and this is something within atheists where they want what the spiritual world gets them. They want to live forever. They really do want eternal life. They like all the benefits of Christianity, but they don't like the God part of Christianity. They love the spiritualism. Atheists are very, very spiritual people. Trust me. They love the idea of being able to live forever. So what Hitchens did is he filled this vacuum, this void. Christopher Hitchens, what he did, I'm not talking about Peter Hitchens, because Peter Hitchens already left the madness of atheism. He's Christopher Hitchens' brother. He already became a Christian. He left the madness a long time ago. But Christopher Hitchens, unfortunately, never left the madness of atheism. But he would talk about how we're all one with the universe, and when we die, we go back to the universe. But I want to tell you, atheist, really, in all kindness and loving, if you're going to become one with the universe, then the end result of your life is death. Because I want you to go to this video here, right here, and I'm debating this atheist, and he says that, he's one with the universe, and when he dies, he's going to become one with the universe. That's a problem, though, because science, modern science, has already shown that unless God steps in, by the way, the universe and everything within it is going to die. Mankind, the human race, all the planets, the universe itself, everything is going to die. So when an atheist says, well, I'm just going to go back to the universe, and well, then that means you're just going to die. The end result of atheism is death. That's the end result on their worldview. This isn't what I'm saying that they believe in or whatever. This is what they'll tell you they believe in. They become one with the universe and all that gobbledygook stuff. The problem, though, is if you become one with the universe, then the end result is death and nothingness, because on atheism, the universe dies, everything within it dies. Now, on the Christian worldview, that's not what we believe. We believe there's going to be a new heaven, a new earth, and we believe in eternal life. We don't believe that anyone really dies per se. We believe that we're changed. We believe in a spiritual world. We believe in eternity. We believe in heaven. We believe in these things. So listen to this debate where the atheist tries to get spiritual and tries to make it like he's going to become one with the universe. The problem, though, on atheism, if you're going to become one with the universe, then you're just going to die, because the universe, science has already shown, unless God steps in, like I mentioned, the universe is going to die. Everything in it will die. There will be no escape. So if you really think about it, when you hear about atheists, how they're wanting to have meetings like at the Reason Rally, and they do all these, I don't know why atheists have meetings, because of the end result of humanity and the end result of their worldview is everything dies anyways. Like, let's say you had a book in front of you right now, and the book's about 500 pages. If you want to know how the book ends, what would you do? That's right, you'd go to the end of the book. Well, imagine that we're in this book, and it's the worldview of atheism. We want to see how it ends. When you go to the back of the book, here's how atheism ends. Everything dies, everything was purposeless, everything was madness. There was no reason to even have the atheist experience show, because it's like, I don't know what the point is. No one's going to remember any good that even atheism does on their worldview. Now, on the Christian worldview, there is reaping and sowing. There is rewards. There is punishments. There is objective good. There is objective evil. But on atheism, it's just madness. It just doesn't make sense. My theory is that the atheist just doesn't really think. If you really think it through, atheism is madness. It's not rational. It is madness in its purest form. All right, let's move on. Now, another problem for atheism is that modern science is an enemy of modern atheism. Modern science is an enemy for modern atheism. Do you know that modern science has shown that the universe had a beginning? Even if the multiverse were true, which there's no evidence of that, but even if it were true, modern science has shown that the universe still had a beginning, even with the multiverse. So if the universe had a beginning, this creates a huge problem for atheists. And you want to listen to this video here from the Treason Rally. The atheist, agnostic atheist, whatever they call themselves, because like half the atheists were saying they believe God exists, and we're like, well, then you're an agnostic. They're like, no, they're atheists. You know, there's atheists that say that they believe that God can exist, and the other half were saying that he can't exist. It's just madness. But the problem for atheists is that we know that the universe had a beginning, and in the beginning there was no matter. There was no space. Even time itself had to come into existence. So the atheist is forced to choose between nothing creating the universe or something that had existed eternally that didn't need to be created. And it's interesting that definition meets God's definition. God has always existed. He wasn't created. He always existed. But we know the universe is different than God because the universe had to be created. The universe is not eternal. It actually began to exist. And we know that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Now, what, pray tell, is that cause if there's no matter, no space, no time? It has to be something that is not within this universe, because how can the universe create itself when it wasn't there to create it? Think about it. It's a catch-22 situation for the atheist. Listen to this video here from the Treason Rally and you'll see that they're very, very confused. And unfortunately, I got to show you something. When you go here to shotgunl.net, hold your mouse over more and then go to this area here where it says debates. I'm going to show you. Now when you go to this area which says debates, you're going to see Lawrence Krauss get totally crushed and defeated by a much wiser Christian, and that was Dr. William Lane Craig. But it's so sad that Lawrence Krauss is actually saying that nothing created the universe. This is how sad it's gotten for atheists, that they actually, I mean, you know, when you think about it, if you're willing to try to brainwash yourself and say that God doesn't exist, what else won't you buy into? I mean, you'll buy into any fiction. Once a man or a woman tries to convince himself that God doesn't exist, there's no limit to the madness they'll buy into. And they'll even buy into the madness that nothing created the universe. When you go to shotgunl.net right here and you scroll all the way down here where it says a great debate, watch this video. It's epic. It's over 2 hours long. And you'll see that Christianity makes more sense scientifically. It makes more sense historically. It makes more sense rationally than atheism ever could. The atheist in this debate, Lawrence Krauss, is saying that nothing created the universe. That's impossible, because nothing is the absence of anything. Nothing has no power. Nothing has no weight. Nothing can't think. Nothing can't create. Nothing is the absence of anything. I can't believe that Lawrence Krauss would be so foolish as to say that nothing created the universe. But, you know, what other choice do they have? The atheists have to fall on their sword and say, well, we better just grin and bear it. And it's embarrassing for atheists to say that nothing created the universe. No wonder atheists are now the least trusted group in society. It is madness in its purest form. Now guys, it is no shock that because of this and the way that atheism wants us to believe in non-science, and they want us to believe in the outdated horse and buggy days of neo-Darwinism, it is no shock to anyone that because of this madness, atheists are now the least trusted group in society. This is why I left atheism. Check this out. I want you to go here and type in atheist least trusted. Do a search for that, right? Check this out. It says, study says religious people distrust atheists as much as rapists. And it says a new study at the University of BC says religious people distrust atheists more than they do persons from other religious groups, gays and feminists. The study found that the only group religious people distrust as much as atheists are rapists. The research involves 6 studies conducted with 350 American students and nearly 420 students in Canada. And it says the study posed a number of hypothetical questions and scenarios to the participants. In one of the studies, participants presented with description of untrustworthy person found it to be more representative of an atheist than Muslims, Jews, gays, and feminists. So Why is this? That this is happening to atheism? Well, if you're going to say that you believe nothing created the universe and you're going to say that God doesn't exist, and then when we ask for some arguments, you say, no, I didn't really mean that. I meant I just don't believe in God. I mean, come on. Here's another study. Atheists cannot be trusted. Religious people rank non-believers alongside rapists. Many religious people don't like atheists and in fact would apparently rate them alongside rapists on levels of trust, suggests a new Canadian study that claims to be one of the first psychological probes into an anti-atheist prejudice. Let's go to this one here. This is where are we? ABC News. ABC News, it says, if an atheist ran for president, a recent poll suggests he or she wouldn't win many votes. Very, very interesting. In 6 separate studies, the researchers asked 770 people, American adults and Canadian college students, a number of questions. In one study, when represented with the description of an untrustworthy person, they're saying, who's an untrustworthy person? And it's interesting because it's the atheist community that's saying that you can't trust religious people and you can't. Well, I think the atheists need to look in the mirror. It's really the other way around. It says here, participants said they believed that description represented atheist and rapist to a similar degree. But it's interesting that Muslims, Jews, gays, feminists, Christians were not distrusted. Why is that? Why is that? Well, notice what it says. Those who were polled said atheists least represented their vision of America. So we did that one already. Let's go back to shotgunnow.net. I'm going to put these links below the video. You can check them out, and I'll have them all here at shotgunnow.net. Now, we've all heard, from the atheist community, they'll say you can't trust people of faith, you can't trust people, you can't trust religion, people that believe in Jesus Christ, they'll say you can't trust that. But it doesn't seem like the theists have a problem with people trusting them. It seems that it's the atheists that do. I was in a debate, and I'm going to kind of show this to you. Here's a couple of debates I've been in, because I want to point some things out to you. This one right here, where I call up an atheist show live on the air, this is really good. The atheist avoids my question 4 or 5 times and then hangs up on me because he can't answer it. And also listen to this show here where the Atheist Experience Show admits that Jesus Christ could have risen from the dead, could have resurrected. Here's me on the radio live. Listen to that. But listen to this too right here. This is really good, where I'm debating an atheist on live radio. And you'll see that there's obvious reasons why atheists are now the least trusted group in society. In one of the debates, we could take questions from the audience, and I actually asked the audience members, I said, look, who would you rather hire to work for you? Let's say you have a shop and you need to have someone watch your cash register and everything. Would you rather hire the Christian who believes that objective moral values exist and stealing's wrong, or would you rather hire someone that believes that, well, theft is subjective? And I said, who would you rather hire, the Christian or the atheist? And overwhelmingly, everyone said they would rather hire the Christian. Well, if you believe that objective moral values are non-existent and there's no such thing as things that are really good or things that are really evil, and if you believe that you're just an animal, this is what atheists say, right? They just believe they're animals and there's no such thing as objective right or wrong, then you can see why people would, I'm just being honest, you can see why they would distrust atheists to work for them and to guard the cash register or things like that, because you want to get someone that works for you that believes theft is always wrong. Listen to this video here where the atheist gets extremely angry at me because he finally admits that objective moral values exist. But if objective moral values exist, then therefore God exists. And if God exists, then atheism's wrong. Now, another good question to ask atheists is the absence of evidence evidence of absence? Let's say that again. Is the absence of evidence evidence of absence? Now, let's say there's a door. We have a door there and we have no evidence that there's someone behind the door. Does that then mean that there's no one behind the door because we don't have evidence for it? Of course not. There could really be someone behind the door. So the atheists will constantly bring up that they want evidence and they want this and they want that, but the problem for them is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Imagine that we're all looking at a door and I'm telling you, look, there's someone behind the door. I have no evidence of that, but I'm saying, look, there's someone behind the door. Just because there's no evidence that there's someone behind the door doesn't mean that there's nobody behind the door. So the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. However, I do believe that Christians have tons of proof and evidence. You're going to see an annotation on the video, and it's the reason why I left atheism. You can click it. I go through 18 reasons, proof and evidence for Christianity, 18 reasons why I left atheism. But it is, to quote Dr. William Lane Craig, Dr. William Lane Craig defeated every atheist out there in debate. Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Lawrence Krauss. He wants to debate Richard Dawkins, but Richard Dawkins is hiding in his little bunny hole. He won't debate Dr. William Lane Craig on a one-on-one debate. But he's debated every atheist out there. He's defeated every atheist out there. And Dr. William Lane Craig said that is the atheist that they believe in a worldview of which there is no evidence. That's the problem. The Christians have evidence. But even if the atheists want to reject our evidence, the fact of the matter is absence of evidence does not mean that there is evidence for absence. Remember the door analogy. There's a door right there in front of you. Just because I have no evidence that there's someone behind the door, but I'm telling you, look, there is someone behind the door, there could really be someone behind the door. But because I don't have evidence of that doesn't mean that there's no one behind the door. But this leads us to the next problem for atheists. When you listen to the video, I put the annotation there, why I left atheism, you'll see that we have very good, logical, rational, powerful reasons to know that God exists. I have absolutely no doubt that God exists. The problem, though, for atheism is there is no proof and evidence that atheism is accurate and correct. There's none whatsoever. Listen to this video here where the atheists get very, very angry. Oh, here it is over here. It's the one with the angry atheist face. This one here, the tenets of atheism. Let's look at it. Tenets of atheism. Number 1, there is no God. Number 2, I hate him. This is their mantra. But listen to this video here and listen to how the atheist cannot provide any arguments of why we should believe atheism is true. Do you know I've been asking the Atheist Experience Show for years and years and years to provide some type of proof and evidence that would show atheism is true, and you know that they haven't done so. All they've said, and click this video here to hear the evidence that they said, and you know what it was? They talked about Santa Claus. Go ahead, go here to shotgunl.net, and you're going to hear the Atheist Experience Show right here obsessing about Santa Claus. No wonder we have studies that say things like this. This is just not good news for atheism. There is no proof and evidence that atheism is true, folks. This leads us to another problem that you'll see in this clip right here at the Treason Rally. Here's a problem for atheism. Do you know that you can go up to atheists and ask them Do you believe it's possible or impossible for God to exist? And you'll have atheists saying that it's possible. You'll have agnostics saying it's possible. But you'll have atheists saying it's possible for God to exist, and you'll also have atheists saying it's impossible for God to exist. That's a major contradiction in atheism. I've been to many Christian churches. I've never attended any Christian church where they said it's possible or impossible for God to exist. They've always said the same thing, crystal clear: God exists. But in atheism, it contradicts itself, and it's a major contradiction. The main foundation of atheism is crumbled. There is no foundation. They're claiming that it's possible for God to exist, and they're claiming that it's impossible. It cannot be a rational choice to be an atheist when the foundation of atheism is so incoherent, and it's crazy. To believe in a worldview that's claiming that it's possible and impossible at the same time is unbelievable. You know, you can be an atheist and claim that it's possible for God to exist, and you can be an atheist and claim it's impossible for God to exist. This is why atheists are the least trusted group in society. That worldview is madness. But like I've mentioned, I've been in many Christian churches, and when I go in there, I've never heard them say it's possible or impossible for God to exist. They always claim God exists. That makes more sense. But you can't believe in a worldview that has these incoherent major contradictions like atheism does. And it is obvious that God exists by the sheer fact that you actually have atheists claiming that it's possible for God to exist. Think about that. I'm a Christian, and I'm telling you, is every Christian that I know claims that God exists, and it's impossible for atheism to be true. Every single one claims that God exists. If God exists, then rationally, logically, atheism's not true, right? So it doesn't make sense. This is another problem with atheism. You'll hear it right here when this agnostic atheist, I don't know, that's like a new phrase now. Do you know, like, the number one most subscribed to atheist on YouTube says he's an agnostic atheist now? I guess that means he's unsure about his atheism. Same thing with this guy here. This guy says that it's possible for God to exist, and he says it's impossible for God to exist, and he says possible, impossible. It's just madness. But again, this is what happens when you embrace the lunacy of atheism. One of the reasons why I left atheism is it was so obvious that God existed, and atheism actually proves that God exists. Because if you think about it, if there were no God, there would be no atheist. Think about that. Let that sink in. Let's go to the next problem for atheism. The next problem for atheists is that they have no objective purpose in life. This is a big problem. See, on the atheist worldview, according to Richard Dawkins also, he says the only purpose for us humans is to propagate DNA. That's the only purpose. So atheists should not have these meetings. They shouldn't have these little TV shows or whatever, although I am glad they do, because I think we should all pray for the Atheist Experience show to stay on the air as long as possible. They're bringing so many people to Christian theism. I mean, it's the best thing for Christian theism ever is the Atheist Experience show. But there is a problem when you have atheists saying that it's possible for God to exist, and when they also admit that they have no objective purpose to life. If you ask an atheist, what's your objective purpose to life, they really can't say anything. Because remember, on their worldview, guys, the universe dies and everything within it dies. That's the end result. That's what science has already shown. Unless God steps in, everything dies on the worldview of atheism. Do you know atheists have the highest suicide rate in the world? Can you see why? We should create a bumper sticker: friends, don't let friends stay atheist. This is why April 1st is the official holiday of atheism. And we got April 1st is coming up right now, so we need to please treat our atheist friends right. We need to help them out of the madness of atheism. But a big problem for atheism is there's no objective purpose. If you're an atheist, I would ask you right now, what is your objective purpose in life? What is it? If you said helping society, the problem though is on your worldview. Remember the book analogy, the end of the book, atheism, everything dies, doesn't it? So helping society can't be your objective purpose because no one's going to ever remember what you did for society, because on your worldview, Mr. and Mrs. Atheist, on your worldview, everything dies. It was all madness. It was dust in the wind. It's a candle quickly fading, here today, gone tomorrow. No. I think the best thing that someone can do as an atheist is run, do not walk from the madness. And that leads us to our next problem for atheism. You know, in this debate right here, I was debating an atheist, and I had mentioned, I said, look, it's obvious that the proof and evidence are on the side of Christianity in this debate. And he admitted that Christianity won that debate. And this is an intelligent guy. He was, educated, and he knew about science, and he knew about, somewhat about Christianity, and he knew these things, and he admitted that Christianity won that debate. He honestly admitted that atheism lost the debate. But I asked him this question. I call this the 50-50 argument. We do know that we're all going to pass on from this life. Our hearts don't keep beating forever. We're going to pass on from this life. And given the fact that, let's say, 50% of the arguments were on the side of atheism and 50% of the arguments were on the side of Christianity, I said, would you agree with me that the rational choice is to choose the path of Christianity because that leads to eternal life, and you get to fellowship with God, you get to have joy unimaginable. These are all things that Christians believe. You get to worship God, you get to love God, you get to see your family members that also embrace this worldview of Christianity, this path of truth. Would you agree that that's a far better choice than atheism? And he said yes. He goes, I would agree that if the arguments and the evidence for Christianity and atheism were equal, that Christianity would be the rational choice to choose. You'll hear him say that. The problem, Mr. and Mrs. Atheist, the problem for you guys, though, is that there's far more than 50% of the arguments on the side of Christianity. There is no proof and evidence that atheism is accurate and correct. What I would advise atheists to do is to think rationally, not emotionally. Get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of the paper, and put all the proof and evidence on the side of Christianity and put all the proof and evidence on the other side of the sheet for atheism. And you'll find that there's nothing that we can put on the side of atheism. There's nothing at all. I've been asking atheists, give me anything. Give me one good argument of why we should believe that atheism is true. I haven't been given any arguments of why we should believe that atheism is true. There is no proof and evidence that atheism is true, guys. Now, you're going to see a video right here, and this is a video titled Atheist. Go to shakanow.net, or I'll put the annotation on the video you're watching right now. Go to shakanow.net, scroll down here, and it's the one on the motorcycle, and this is proof and evidence. These are 18 reasons of why I left atheism. The proof and evidence is totally on the side of Christianity, you guys. It totally is there. If you want to live a life where you can be rooted and grounded in a worldview where history supports it, and the archaeological proof supports it, and science supports it, and truth supports it, then Christianity is the path. But right now, science does not support atheism. Truth doesn't support atheism, and the archaeological history of the world doesn't support atheism. Everything is supporting Christianity. So if you make a rational decision, we know that decision will be Christianity. This has been 10 problems that atheism has. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to go to shakanow.net right here, and when you get there, scroll all the way down here, and definitely watch this clip from the Treason Rally. Watch this clip here where a lady in the audience gets up and confronts the atheist. This is really good. Watch this clip here where, we've asked the Atheist Experience Show, what proof and evidence do you have that atheism is accurate and correct? And all they talk about is Santa Claus. You can hear about it right here. Santa Claus this, Santa Claus that. I mean the Santa syndrome. And don't forget to take this IQ test. I have hope and faith and confidence in you that you're going to choose letter C here. And of course, what I believe is the most epic video that I've ever seen. I've been on YouTube a long time. This is the most epic video ever. Please go to shakanow.net and look at it before the atheists flag it for the 5 million zillionth time. But it doesn't matter. We'll just upload it again. But watch this video where the Atheist Experience Show admits that it is possible that Jesus Christ did rise from the dead, which officially makes atheism null and void. God bless you guys. I love you. This is Shock, and you have a great week.